Good evening, everyone, and we're back. Today, we will be reading chapters 7, 8, and 9 in Surviving the Applewhites. When we left, Jake Semple he's had his first days at school here in the academy, and he's kind of figuring things out. ED does not want him to participate in the butterfly project. I can tell you that much. But because he has to go along with her curriculum, he's going to have to do this. And she just needs that one butterfly, the fritillary. So who knows what's going to happen next? Don't forget, this is Surviving the Applewhites by Stephanie Tolan. Test number 60652. I'm reading these backwards, so it looks backwards to me. But 60652. This is a 5.5 level book. And this is worth 7 points. So let me tell you, I know it's spring break, but if you want to catch some of these videos, this is a great way just to read to listen to a couple chapters a night or 3 chapters a night. And at the end of this thing next Monday, you all can take the test and get 100% on it. There's 7 points right there. Boom. That'd be pretty nice. So thought you like that. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody's doing okay out there. If you need anything, just please send me a message. Put it in the chat. I respond to all my messages, all my comments like that. I think today I had the longest response time for me was I got one early this morning, and I think it took me 45 minutes to respond. But trust me, I get the notification and I just respond. So that being said, we can begin our story, or continue with our story, not really begin our story. I will tell you that last night, it was a little bit longer. We had 3 longer chapters to read. I'll tell you tonight, this chapter, I think it's got a total of 18 pages to read. And tomorrow night's just a little bit longer. So this shouldn't be too long videos. But anyway, I see we've got a couple people on here. If you want to, throw it over in the chat. So, tell me who you are. Say hello. Also, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Please subscribe. I've got a lot of I see a lot of people on here. You kind of check the analytics of these things and see if you got a lot of people that like the videos. I see I got some thumbs up. Tell other people about this, and not just these longer stories, but some of these short stories too. And with that being said, let's go on with our story. And got my water bottle in case the old whistle gets a little dry. Chapter 7. Edie had gone to her room to get away from Jake for a while. She must have fallen asleep. She was jolted out of a dream about fires and explosions by the sound of the crash, followed by yelling, most of which seemed to be her father. She shook the dream images from her muddled brain and left her room just in time to run into her mother, who was emerging from her office, a pencil behind each ear and her computer glasses still resting on the end of her nose. "Where's Destiny? Has something happened to Destiny? Somebody call 911, she yelled. By the time they reached the scene of the accident, it was clear that Destiny wasn't involved. Randolph, red-faced and fairly dancing with rage, was shaking his fist at a tall, thin, pale, pimply-faced young man with a ponytail, shouting about incompetent drivers and refugees from a demolition derby. The young man, his hands up as if to ward off a blow, was protesting in a high, reedy voice that he wasn't the one who'd been driving like a madman. His words were all but drowned out by the fresh deluge of verbal abuse. He kept glancing down at the thoroughly crumpled front end of the accident and ancient and rusty Civic, as if it were the battered body of a beloved family member. He looked, Edie thought, on the brink of tears. "Daddy's car won! Daddy's car won!" Destiny said. It wasn't clear to Edie that either car could be said to have won, but there was no question that the smash bumper of the Miata, even caught as it was in the tangle of wreckage, was far less devastating to the car's future than the condition of the Civic's front end. That reminded her of an aluminum can that had been smashed for recycling. Steam was rising from beneath the mangled hood, and a greenish-yellow fluid was making a puddle in the gravel. It seemed impossible that one car could be so much more damaged than the other. Zedediah, Archie, and Lucille were converging on the bend in the driveway from different directions, all asking questions at once. The window of Hal's room was thrown open, and his voice joined the general confusion. Winston began barking in his deepest and most threatening tone from beneath the bush where he had taken refuge. Randolph was now threatening to bankrupt the young man with a lawsuit charging reckless driving and attempted vehicular homicide. The young man's face drained of what little color it had. Sybil, having assured herself that Destiny was unhurt, scooped him up in her arms. Zedediah, still wearing his sawdust-covered tool apron, stepped between the two men and rested a hand on each of their shoulders. Randolph stopped shouting, and in the silence, the blood gradually seeming to return to the young man's face, though he still looked ready to burst into tears. Under Zedediah's patient questioning, the young man explained that his name was Jeremy Bernstein. He was a writer sent by a literary journal to interview Sybil Jameson, and he'd had an appointment for that evening. He said, in fact, been invited to dinner. No, said Sybil, putting Destiny down. That's not today. I distinctly remember that's not until the 16th. I invited you for the 16th. This is the 16th, Jeremy Bernstein said. Everyone else nodded in agreement. Can't anyone in this family keep anything straight? Randolph said, his voice rising. You can't just go inviting the media to descend on the household to shatter everyone's privacy, not without at least warning the rest of us. Edie could see her mother's jaw going rigid. When she spoke, it was between tightly clenched teeth. I am immersed in what is just possibly the most important and most difficult and complex literary work of my career. I have left the Petunia Grantham series behind. I am striking out into new and unexplored territory. But do you care? Except for this young man here, I doubt that any of you even knows what I'm embarked on. I get absolutely no support from this family. I can't be expected to keep track of details. Details? You can hardly call today's date a detail. It's the first sign of mental deterioration to lose track of dates. Randolph shook away his father's calming hand and looked at his watch. This is an unmitigated catastrophe. I am supposed to have dinner with the president of the board of the Treybridge Little Theater in exactly 20 minutes to talk about my work. These people are none too stable. When I don't show up on time, she's likely to panic and hire some lawyer to direct their show. Some accountant. That's what they'll do. They'll hire an accountant to direct my production of The Sound of Music. He pointed to his car. Someone will have to take me. My car is ruined, destroyed. Don't be stupid, Randolph, Archie said. It's nothing but the bumper and running lights that are smashed. If the headlights still pop up, we'll just rip the bumper off and you can be on your way in 3 minutes. He got into the car and popped up the headlights. See, you'll be fine. Rip the bumper off my Miata? I have no intention of defacing this car. It's already defaced. Do you want to get to your dinner or not? The way you drive, no sane person would let you borrow their car. I'll get the crowbar. Archie headed for the barn. Edie thought he seemed particularly pleased with the idea of taking a crowbar to his brother's car. Zedediah took a cell phone from a pocket of his tool apron, blew off the sawdust, and handed it to Randolph. Call the restaurant and tell the woman you've been delayed. Yes, Randolph dear, Sybil said. You go keep your precious appointment and leave the rest of us to clean up after you. I'm sure someone will take care of whatever we need to take care of with this young man's insurance company. Our lawyer will take care of that, Randolph roared. We don't have a lawyer, remember? He quit after you. We'll get another. Fine, dear. Meantime, after you've made your call, perhaps you'll call a tow truck to take Mr. Bernstein's car to be fixed. Archie, who was on his way back with the crowbar, shook his head. No point in that. It's totaled. Dead. Kaput. The condition it was in before the wreck, it's a wonder there's anything left but a handful of rust. Now, Jeremy Bernstein did burst into tears. Why is that man crying? Destiny asked. Did he get hurt in the crash? Is he going to be all right? Will he have to go to the hospital? Is he going to die? If he dies, what will the... Sybil gestured to Cordelia to take Destiny into the house. Cordelia took him by the back of the shirt, and he went, protesting all the way. Lucille had meantime hurried to confront the weeping young man. She patted him on the back and assured him that he could have dinner with them and that someone would take him to his hotel afterwards. I don't have I don't have a hotel, he said, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. He took the handkerchief Zedediah offered him and blew his nose. Thanks. I was going to find a place to stay after I'd finished the interview. Then you'll stay in one of the guest cottages, Lucille said. Archie had begun prying the Miata's bumper loose from the car. Edie, please show Mr. Bernstein to Dogwood Cottage. We can deal with the insurance issues in the morning. Edie turned and saw Jake leaning against the trunk of a tree. Winston was sitting at his feet, leaning against his legs. The look on Jake's face seemed to suggest he was actually enjoying himself. Car accidents must be right up there with fires for excitement. Well, it looks as if old Randolph was in a hurry. He caused the accident, and then it just so happens that these harebrained people can't keep things straight. Mama's got an interview over some book that she's reading, and the interviewer shows up and wrecks into Randolph. Oh, these people. What is going on with them? Chapter 8. Jake stared at the serving dishes on the table. Visions of starvation rose again in his mind. There was a casserole of zucchini and onions. There were sliced tomatoes, cooked carrots, green beans, beets, and a bowl of something dark green and slimy looking that Lucille identified as beet greens. All from my garden, she told Jeremy Bernstein proudly. She didn't elaborate on nature, spirits, and dream communication. When Archie came from the kitchen with a huge platter, Jake's hopes rose. There had been bacon at breakfast. These people did eat meat. But when the platter was set down in front of Zedediah, who was seated at the head of the table, Jake sighed. Ugh. There were a couple of hot dogs, one bratwurst, a handful of breaded shrimp, a chicken thigh and drumstick, and a couple of indeterminate patties that might have been meat or might have been veggie burgers. Ugh. This was it, eh? The old man asked Archie. Archie shrugged and nodded. I planned a really nice dinner. Honestly, I did. I just thought you were coming next week, Sybil Jameson said to Bernstein. I'm terribly sorry. Randolph forgot to do the grocery shopping, Archie explained as he sat down. This was all that was left in the freezer. Bernstein shook his head. No problem. Honestly, no problem. I've been thinking of becoming a vegetarian anyway. If God had wanted humans to be vegetarians, Zedediah said, he'd have given them cow's teeth and an extra stomach. He passed the platter down the table. Get what you want first, young man. No telling what would be left if you waited your turn. By the time the platter got to Jake, all that was left were the patties. Jake's stomach growled as he put one between the tiny mounds of vegetables on his plate. He wondered what sort of food was served at Juvenile Hall. I would too. As everyone began to eat, Zedediah asked Bernstein about the magazine he wrote for. Bernstein's eyes lit up. He looked fully alive for the first time since he emerged from his ruined car. The New World Literary Review. It won the Bromer East Coast Arts Foundation Award for 3 years in a row for its arts criticism, and he turned to look at Sybil, who was at the end of the table opposite Zedediah. In-depth interviews of the literary geniuses of our time. It's that sort of interview that I came to do. I wouldn't have thought that Petunia Grantham Mysteries could have anyone classified as a literary genius, Zedediah said. The books sell the potato chips, the books sell like potato chips, but Bernstein choked on a bite of carrot. Haven't you told them? He asked Sybil. He looked around the table. It must be difficult for the family of a writer of Miss Jameson's stature to fully appreciate the jewel they have in their midst. The Petunia Grantham mysteries are splendid examples of their genre, of course, but our readers are getting a sneak preview of her new work. The first two chapters of what will no doubt be heralded as the literary masterpiece of the new century will be printed in the next issue. I've been sent to do the interview that will accompany those chapters. Everyone at the review is terrifically excited. It's an event of enormous interest to the whole literary community when a writer as popular as Miss Jameson stakes out new artistic territory. The world is awaiting the coming great American novel with bated breath. It must be getting blue in the face by this time, Cordelia said. If it's the book that she started when I was in kindergarten, the world's been waiting for this particular great American novel for more than 10 years. And well worth the wait, Bernstein said. Judging from the opening chapters, which I've been privileged to read, one can't rush a work of art. Who would have guessed that Debbie Applewhite would turn into a literary genius before our eyes, Zedediah said. Debbie Applewhite? Zedediah, Sybil said, her face flushing red. She turned to Bernstein. That's off the record. I've been Sybil Jameson for nearly 20 years. My parents named me Debbie for Debbie Reynolds. I can't imagine what they were thinking of. But he said Applewhite. My married name, of course. Jeremy Bernstein looked from Sybil to Zedediah and back again, his eyes at least twice as big as normal. Applewhite? Your married name is Applewhite? Then your husband, the man I crashed into, is Randolph Applewhite, the theater director? You've heard of him? I reviewed his off-Broadway revival of The Time Remembered for my college newspaper. It was magnificent. Randolph Applewhite. I didn't realize. Bernstein stopped and looked back at Zedediah. His eyes, Jake thought, looked about to pop out of his head. Applewhite. Zedediah Applewhite. Of Zedediah Applewhite, handcraft wooded furniture? Zedediah nodded. Good heavens. And Lucille. Archie. It's quite a clan, Zedediah said. Lucille Applewhite, the poet. This is so amazing. I own both of your chapbooks. And Archie Applewhite, I visited your website, and I saw your chair with ottoman in a gallery just last month. It was stunning, so original and inventive. I hope you had the good sense not to try to sit on it, Archie said. Applewhite? Jameson? I had no idea. No one at the review had any idea. Bernstein put his hand over his heart and took a deep breath. His cheeks had gone pink. I apologize for my ignorance. I'm so embarrassed. I had no idea that all the Applewhites were the same family, or that Sybil Jameson was an Applewhite as well, by marriage, of course, Zedediah said. As patriarch of this clan, I can't really take credit for her, or Lucille, for that matter, except that my sons had a good sense to choose them. I'm an Applewhite, Destiny said. My name's Destiny Applewhite. Destiny is my first name, but this is too wonderful, Bernstein said. An artistic dynasty, like the painters, the Wyeths, or the writing Brontes, or the acting Barrymores, except that you each do such different work. He turned back to Sybil. You never gave so much as a hint. Sybil was sitting very still when she spoke. Her voice was chilly. I was under the impression that you were coming to interview me. It didn't occur to me to mention my family any more than it would have occurred to any of them to mention me. Bernstein said, yes, well, he cleared his throat, but I have to tell you, it's exciting to be sitting here at a table in the midst of so much talent. It's like expecting to find a diamond and stumbling into an entire mine. The children are still exploring their artistic potentials, Sybil said. Destiny shows signs of talent in the visual arts. He has a real eye for color. That's me, Destiny said. I got lots of finger paintings. You want to see my finger paintings? He got down from the table and went off toward the schoolroom. Sybil went on. Hal, whom you haven't met, nor are likely to, unless you're planning to put down roots, Archie said. None of us has laid eyes on him for months. Sybil frowned at Archie. Hal is something of an introvert, but I'm sure you understand the sensitive artistic temperament, Bernstein added, his face serious. and sympathetic. He was passionately into painting for a while, but judging from the new sign on his door, the materials he's been ordering on the internet, and the sounds coming from his room, he seems to be expanding his range. We all respect his artistic privacy, of course, so we won't know what he's working on until he's ready to show us. I'm composing choreographing an original ballet, Cordelia said. I also played the music and will dance it. It's a solo ballet called The Death of Ophelia, from Hamlet, you know. Ah, Ophelia, unrequited love, madness, drowning, superb material for a ballet, an opera even. I don't sing. That's the Achilles heel of the whole Applewhite clan, Zedediah said. If there's a singing gene, we don't have it. Applewhites don't sing. I do. Destiny had come back in, carrying a large sheet of paper covered in red and green smudges. I sing all the time. He put down his finger painting and launched into the itsy bitsy spider at the top of his lungs, walking his fingertips up an imaginary water spout. Destiny proves Zedediah's point, Jake thought. From then on, the conversation went on around Jake so fast and furiously that he wasn't sure he could have followed it if he wanted to. It was all about art, mostly Applewhite art. He did his best, in spite of his total loathing of cooked vegetables, to eat enough to keep body and soul together, slipping bits of zucchini and beet and cooked carrot to the dog at his feet under the table. Though he was apparently willing to eat anything, Winston seemed to enjoy beet greens in particular. You're very lucky to be invited to participate in this amazing educational opportunity, Bernstein said to Jake at one point. Jake realized the conversation had come around to the Creative Academy. He nodded dutifully. He hadn't been listening, so he didn't know whether Bernstein understood why he'd been invited to participate. You know, Bernstein went on, addressing the whole family now, I have a friend who's a producer for a magazine show on one of the television networks. He's always looking for stories with enough of a hook to interest the network executives. I've never had one to give him before, but I think this could be it. The Applewhite artistic dynasty and the homeschool designed to perpetuate it. If I may borrow a computer, I could email him and the idea tonight. I know it would be an invasion of your privacy, but I think those of us who understand the importance of the arts owe it to the rest of America to give them a taste of what it's all about. Later, while Bernstein and the adults carried the conversation into the living room, and Cordelia put Destiny to bed, Jake and Edie were sent to rinse the dishes and put them in the dishwasher. Edie said nothing at all as they worked, but she crashed plates and glasses into each other so ferociously, Jake was surprised that nothing broke. What's her problem? Jake wondered, setting the meat platter on the floor for Winston to lick. So these people, not only are they just like kind of out there artistic types, they're apparently well known. Huh. So other people know them, and other people want to get to know them so much that this reporter was just excited to meet the author, the daughter-in-law of Zedediah, and now he's wanting them to do a TV show. They're wanting the networks to come out, possibly do a TV show about the Applewhites. I don't know how Jake's going to take all this. Here we go. Chapter 9. Edie slammed the door to her room and threw herself on the bed. Not one word, she thought. Neither her mother nor Zedediah had said a single word about her to Jeremy Bernstein. Her name hadn't even been mentioned. She might as well have been in Treybridge with her father. Invisible, that's what she was. The invisible Applewhite. It was too much. She wanted out of this family. She turned over and lay on her back, staring up at the posters of rock stars she had taped to the ceiling. Cordelia and Hal didn't have posters of rock stars. They wouldn't sink so low as to admit they liked what almost every other kid their age in the whole civilized world liked. Oh no, they were much too individual for that, much too artsy. And wimpy Jeremy Bernstein probably never had rock stars on his ceiling either. He probably had posters of Shakespeare or Picasso or Edith Wharton. Well, she had news for her family. She might not have a talent that would get a television producer excited about doing a story on her, but she wouldn't lose track of the date or forget to go to the grocery when they were out of food. Unlike certain other people, she was going to be able to cope with the real world when she got old enough to go out into it on her own. The way Jeremy Bernstein had talked about the Creative Academy, anybody would have thought the adults had thought it up specifically to educate the next generation of artistic geniuses. The truth was, she was the only one who was doing anything to keep it any sort of school at all. The only one actually getting an education from it, and the only one making sure that Destiny would get an education. She had read somewhere that the best way to learn something was to teach it. So she had built in a teaching opportunities section to every built in a teaching opportunities section to every single project in her curriculum. When she learned enough about each project, she taught the main ideas to Destiny. That way, he was learning a whole bunch of things he might never decide to learn on his own. And he was learning them really early, before he was even supposed to be a student in the academy, so that when he began doing his own thing, whatever that turned out to be, he wouldn't end up as ignorant as Cordelia and Hal were bound to be. Jeremy Bernstein was worried about a television show invading their family's privacy and just showed how little he understood them. Every last one of them lived to be the center of attention, even Hal, turning himself into a recluse, guaranteed that people would talk about him. She threw her extra pillow across the room. She hated being an Applewhite. That's a short little chapter. It just shows that Edie is not happy here. Edie doesn't feel like she fits in with the Applewhites, does she? Well, I wonder how this is going to work out for her. I wonder how, if she's trying to be the adult here. Have you ever had to be the adult? Go ahead if you want. Put a message on in the comments. Tell me about some time that you've kind of been like Edie. Well, on that note, I will see you all tomorrow. It might be a few minutes early tomorrow, as I think we have just a few more pages to read, and so I might start around 6:25 or so. But other than that, I will see you tomorrow. You all have a nice evening and stay safe out there. Bye.